Welcome to Outreach Ministries International. On this segment, we'll be talking about the very important issue of evangelism. So I have here in studio with me three gentlemen who are all involved in evangelism, or at least some aspect of evangelism. So starting from closest to me, I have Darryl Edwards, then we have Terrence Honoré, and finally Anderson Mohammed. So gentlemen, welcome. I know that evangelism is near and dear to your heart, and in fact, you would realize that it is near and dear to Outreach Ministries, given our name. So let me just start off by saying, there are some who may say that with the advent of social media and all the technology that we have, we're able to contact people virtually any part of the world from where we are. Is there still a need for real, live, human, flesh evangelists like yourselves? Right. So maybe we could start with you, Anderson.
Yes, I still believe the person, the evangelist, is necessary. One of the things we see about social media is a powerful tool. However, the enemy also has his hand on it. Instead of having one voice as an evangelist preaching the gospel, you may not be able to take away that voice, so you infiltrate social media with millions of voices, right? So the gospel is somewhere in the mix, and who's going to tune into which program to hear which gospel, you know? So that's kind of like the downfall of it. But when you have a man who is anointed by God, an evangelist, to preach not any other idea but the gospel of Jesus Christ with signs and wonders following, that in itself is a testimony to the true gospel in the midst of all the voices that you hear on social media. Because everybody now is a preacher on social media, you know. Everybody has a voice, but it takes an evangelist a little more gumption and courage to declare the word of God without compromise.
Very interesting point. I like what you said there about the many voices out there, and that the evangelist still represents the specific voice sent from God with a specific message of salvation, and that is so very necessary in today's world. Let's hear your views, Darryl.
There is a need. I welcome social media and all that social media has to offer, but I feel we need that interaction with the evangelist, a man who is called by God, anointed by God, to do the work of an evangelist. And I feel we really, really need it. It's not being done enough, and I feel that we should be out there, because God did say, go into all the world and preach the gospel, and I think we should be going there. We should be sharing this gospel, face on, hands on with the people.
Right, right. I'm glad you brought up that point about you think that it should be done more. There's not enough evangelistic efforts going on, which kind of leads us very nicely to you, Terrence. And I understand this is probably your forte. Tell us some more about what you're actually doing.
Well, what we are doing is looking to see how we could create opportunities for the spread of the gospel. There have been traditional models and approaches within the local church. We have had para-church organizations as well. A lack of coordination and cooperation and all that has all been one of the things that has affected the spread of the gospel in Trinidad. It is quite challenging. I just want to pop back to what we are saying about the social media. I just want to make a comment with respect to the fact that it is chaotic. My appreciation of it is that it's a satanic strategy to confuse and to create chaos. And in the midst of the chaos, the role and function of the evangelist is critical. It's a light. It doesn't matter whichever means and medium and forum is created. The mission and the challenge and the role of the evangelist drives through and is spoken. Whether it's Mars Hill with Paul, the apostle, or whether it is Laventille, it is still the same, getting the message through to the masses. And as we know, Paul said in teaching us, he said in the word that by any means and by all means we would win some. And so we look at creative, contemporary. It has to be contemporary. It has to be creative. It's a channel of communication and influence that we have to utilize and actualize in order to be effective in evangelism.
Well said. Anderson, you wanted to make a comment there just now.
No,
So you're ready to
I
jump in?
agree. As I said, social media is powerful.
Yeah.
In the right hands, it can deliver the message of the gospel. But it takes an individual who may be unchurched or unsaved. Where would they get this inkling to search out the content on social media, the gospel themselves? They're not going to wake up one morning and say, how do I get saved on Google, right? So that's why we so focus on the tangible presence of people. Of course, yes, people receive the gospel through social media. They hear preachers on there. I use social media a lot, right, as an evangelist. But more than the social media, people need that physical touch. But the Bible says, lay hands on the sick. Yes, we've seen people receive healing through the television or whatever, but it is still good to interact with people. The modern day, in Jesus' time, was writing letters. He didn't have social media, but he still went. Paul wrote letters, but he still went to different areas. And so it's our mandate as well. We have social media, yes, but we still have to go.
Right. So given that, okay, I think we pretty much agreed, evangelism by actual human beings is still tremendously important and very necessary. I'm reminded that Jesus gave the Great Commission, and so far, I don't think anybody has received any retraction of that commission from him. So we're still supposed to be doing that, actively engaged in doing that. But undoubtedly, in today's world, the work of an evangelist is faced with many, many challenges. What are some of these challenges that you face, and how have you been overcoming them?
I feel the challenges are the time span for evangelism. With the Caribbean, we're dealing with rain or sun. And normally evangelism runs for the first 3 to 4 months of the year. After that, there is nothing for the evangelist to do unless he or she plans for themselves. Churches don't plan after the first 3 months of the year for evangelism. Then the financial contribution. That's why we have people, I believe, staying away from evangelism. There's no gravitation to it. Also, there's not even the desire to fulfill your God-given call for evangelism because of the lack of finances to maintain yourself, family, and otherwise. That's some of my challenges I feel I've been experiencing. But God's been good. I've been putting my own things in place to maintain myself and to do that which God called me to do. But it's a challenge.
Right. So your big things would be time in terms of
The time span, yeah.
the time span, and also finances. Anderson?
Well, for me, it would be the actual ministry. To me, evangelism is very much spiritual warfare, right? In going into the enemy's territory. And my experience over the last 10 years as an evangelist, going to some areas where on reach, I faced a lot of challenges myself. I was held at gunpoint. I had terrorists come into my services in the Middle East and threatened to, just blow up everything. And they got saved. We had encounters in Africa with witch doctor just throwing blood all over my clothes and everything. And but the challenge of evangelism of today is not those things. Those things are part of it. Right? You're going into the enemy's territory. The challenge is the men and the women of God who would say yes to the call of evangelism. Everything else is in the hands of the Lord. The finances, all these different. Yes, it is a challenge. People do not support something that they're not seeing. They say out of sight, out of mind. Because sometimes they're not going to see me in Haiti or Africa or India, wherever we are, and they feel as though, they don't want to support because they're not seeing that. So that's a challenge.
Good. So maybe a good place to close is with you, Terrence, because your role in sort of promoting and encouraging evangelism is critical. So quickly tell us what's the next step for you in doing this?
Well, in fact, we are looking at the different groupings. We know that the next generation, if you really want to make a change in the orientation and appreciation for the role of evangelism, is to get into the minds and hearts of the young people, to find the young evangelists, to ensure that they engage with and rub shoulders with the experienced senior evangelists so that we'll have some continuity. We seem to have a lack of succession planning in the church. And so what we're looking is to create that forum where young evangelists could ascend and could be teachable and move into different. Now, things change. The scenarios change. The methodology might change. But the basic concept and call of God for the evangelist is mandatory. There is no recourse. There is no excuse for people. So we look at strategies. We were just conversing about looking. The malls in San Fernando have come out and agreed to give us a space on a Sunday afternoon as an example for all the Christian youths to hang out. It's not church out. Right. Yeah. So methods and strategies have to change with the times and have to be consistent, and it will be effective. Yeah.
Great. So unfortunately, we have to bring it to a close here, at least this segment. But it's been really great just to, in this short space of time, getting a flavor from you. So some of the challenges you face, and again, what is being done about it, and we certainly have some exciting things to look forward to, which is really great news, positive news for the church. So thanks again for being with us. We're going to talk some more about evangelism in the next segment, and we're going to be taking a look at how it used to be back then, and interestingly, how it still is. So thanks again for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. So I'm John Hart, thanking you again for being with us.
Of my soul, I worship thee. I'm giving back to the Lord. I'm giving back more than before. I give my heart, I give my soul, my whole world. I'm giving back to the Lord. I'm giving back forevermore. I give my heart, I give my soul, my whole world. I woke up this morning, many are gone, but still I'm breathing. Many take it for granted, but I thank the Lord for life is a blessing. It's not by my will, but by His grace I live. Jesus sustains me, so Him I live to please. I'm giving back to the Lord. I'm giving back more than before. I give my heart, I give my soul, my whole world. I'm giving back to the Lord. I'm giving back forevermore. I give my heart, I give my soul, my whole world. Yeah, yeah. Everything will be alright when we make God smile. Everything will be okay when we dust the evil away. Everything will be alright when we make God smile. Everything will be okay when we dust the evil away. Dust the evil away. Let love reign today. Dust the evil away. To the Lord, I'm giving back to the Lord. I'm giving back more than before. I give my heart, I give my soul, my whole world. I'm giving back to the Lord. I'm giving back forevermore. I give my heart, I give my soul, my whole world. I'm giving back to the Lord. I'm giving back more than before. Yes. Oh Lord, I'm giving back to you. For all you've done for me, how you set me free. I'm giving back to you as you've given back to me.
Welcome to Outreach Ministries. We're continuing our discussion on evangelism. And I have here with me in studio three stalwarts of evangelism. And so we're going to be taking a look at evangelism, how it used to be back then. And because you all are still actually actively involved in evangelism, how you see now as being compared to back then. So let me introduce my guest, Reverend Harry Ramkisoon, and of course we all know our own Reverend Jerry Prescod, and at the end we have Reverend Baines. Right? Great. So maybe we could probably start with you, Reverend Ramkisoon. You have been involved in evangelism in Trinidad for many, many years. In fact, I might say that these are names that I grew up hearing from a babe. So,
well, I served as an evangelist for 35 consecutive years not as a pastor evangelist or prophet evangelist, just evangelism. I never saw an evangelist. I was pastoring a church in 1971, my first pastorate. Nobody never anointed me. Nobody never speak a word on me. But because of the lifestyle I came from, as most of you know, I was a vagrant in Woodford Square. There I used to live. I used to live at the Salvation Army Night Shelter for Men in Duncan Street. I was involved in 8 major robberies. 3 of my associates was executed. I was wanted for murder twice. And in 1967, at the old George Street Market, I gave my heart to Jesus. I came into the church. I used to sleep in the church. I had nowhere to live. And the caretakers adopted me. And then after, for a while, I was appointed in my first pastorate. After working in a bank, I started as a messenger, and I rose right up to the chief coin teller and the man in charge of opening new accounts. Don't ask me how it happened. Only God alone did it.
Amen.
But in 1971, very successful pastor, I felt the call in my life because of the lifestyle I came from. I said, if God could do it for me, he can do it for others. And I resigned my job, and I went on. I started 14 churches in this country. And in 35 consecutive years, I held 1,850 crusades. I held 610 crusades. I had 10 tents. Pioneered 14 churches. I traveled in 45 countries around the world in evangelism. From 1971 to now, I never held a secular job. All I do is preach. That's all I know about. And I've seen thousands of people get saved, baptized so many people. In the days in the Mosquito Creek, they had to call police to direct traffic, long lines of people. We just went about ministering 14 times a week, preaching 4 times on Sunday.
Wow.
That's where I used to go.
All to fulfill the command,
Fulfill
the command of God,
has given to me,
the
yes.
call he placed upon your life.
Yes, yes.
Amazing testimony. We need to hear some more of that. So we definitely need to have you back to
course on the
talk.
evangelists that I go around sharing in churches.
Right. We definitely need to get deeper into that with you in a future program. So you are no stranger. So let's treat the guests better first. So, Reverend Baines, let's hear it from you.
Well, I am obviously the youngling in the pack. I started evangelism in the late 80s, and I have served, you have to say, in different capacities. I have done full-time evangelism for about 15 to 20 years. I have not been as astute as Reverend Ranky soon to keep records, but served in dual roles, pastoring and evangelism. In fact, I have never really stopped. In total, I mean, I've been in the ministry now for about 33 years. And of course, the landscape continues to change. And I have been influenced by these gentlemen that are here. And I think my approach and my conviction about it primarily started from the environment that I found when I came into the church. And it is critical because I think a man, for the most part, is the product of his environment. And the church that I accepted the Lord in was an evangelistic type church. And that was the climate. I mean, everybody that came in wanted to be involved in evangelism because it was that kind of church.
Right.
And I still feel that part of the challenge that we face is the climate for the most part, because when people come into the environment, they become a part of what they meet, you know. So I'm sure we'll discuss some of those things further, but if one is to talk about the state of evangelism at this particular point in time, the church environment must be a major contributor to what we see at this particular point.
So it was your environment that really spurred you onto this. Right. So, Reverend Prescod, now let me just tell you, once on my way to Tobago, in the boat, you know, all set to probably just sit back and watch the movie, and I heard an announcement come across, and whoever was giving the announcement said, ladies and gentlemen, we'd just like to take a few minutes of your time. We have somebody with a special message for you. So I was confused. What special message is this? And then I heard the voice of Reverend Prescod, and I was, but this man is amazing. Yes. I mean, so Reverend Prescod, evangelism back then, now?
Well, then I'll tell you. When I came in, I'm from Tobago, and I only had a pastor for about 6 months. And then I met a group, the Tobago Christian Movement, that their goal was to evangelize the world. And I got bloody in myself and Reverend Gift. 3 months saved, we have to start preaching. We don't know A or B. And those fellas were 5 years, 6 years saved, and they said the both of us have to be evangelists. So what I used to do, when I finish work, and go home, I hustle home, tired, I open the Bible, close my eye, and put my hand on a verse. And whatever come up, I spin it in my song. I mean, you don't know. Yes, and I spin that verse to try to win souls with it. And from early o'clock, I started talking to people anyway, especially young people like myself. I wanted to share the message that Christ is real, and hey, he could meet the needs of the young people, because I'm young too. I got saved at 22. I was late. Thank God I didn't get saved before, but I had to take it as it come. But then we had, all right, you take, for instance, revival time. Every weekend, some big evangelist is in San Fernando. When we came to Bible school, those fellas, whoever all said hand, came up to Bible school to preach to us on a Friday. So we were, everywhere you turn, is this evangelist, that preacher, you know, from different areas of the world. So you get, the world begin to shrink now. Because here is somebody from Hong Kong. You know where Hong Kong is, but hey, suddenly Hong Kong become real. Right. Here is somebody from Midwest. Again, the Midwest become real. Canada, wherever it was. So evangelism was the goal. Real, I'm telling you, big evangelists came in. Paul Olson, Cirillo, all these men. We read the books. You understand me? Golden Grain, that's, he was something else. All these men, the voice of healing. We grew up with that. Eames gave us 3 books when we went into Bible school. Black Gold, Frontier Evangelism, all by Taylor Osborne. So we read them. They were exciting. We want to be a part of that. We want to win souls. So we came up in the era where evangelism was winning souls. Today, Zilk.
So I think the common thread, I think, that runs through what each of you has said is that it's a passion. A passion for winning the lost. And I think our big takeaway, that same passion needs to return to the church, because guess what? They're still lost out there. Mm-hmm. And unless somebody is sent with the message, then they're just not going to get the message. You know? So it's, I think part of your role is transferring that passion to this generation. Exactly. Passing on the mantle.
Brother, in my days, I had a lot of limitation as an evangelist. Well, to be realistic, and I don't blow horn about it, I never had the opportunity to go to a school of theology. So there was strike one against me. People thought as an evangelist I was only fit for under the mango tree and the store and by the roadside. I was not fit for the church. And people never invite me to the church. But you know what? When I got married, my wife said, I'll work and send you to preach. And my wife worked and sent me to preach. I was a national evangelist in this country. I had a boardhouse, outhouse toilet, and I had flambeau. You see, people see the glory, but they don't know the story. I toiled the ground. I preached for $9 a week. People criticize me. And the hurtful part about it, the people who you expect to hold up your hand is the one that want to break your hand. Every time an opportunity arises, they go back to the old days. He come from Woodford Square, boy. He can't make. And my opportunities was limited. People didn't want to invite me. They felt that the evangelist was a hit-and-run man, right? And this is what people say, not knowing that he's the vital link to the sinner and to the church. The evangelist is a man who go and catch the fish. And I put up my tent with tall top. I hold 600 tent crusades all over this country. Almost so putting up a tent somewhere else. People criticize my ride bicycle and preach. My first car was a Viva. They christen it over and turn it to a Fever. When they drive it, people used to see my feet. I never worry. I had no windshield wiper. My heartbeat was to win souls. Right. Knowing where God brought me from, He can do it for other people. And I never run in the red for 35 years. My principle, you take care of God's business, He take care of your business. And God has blessed me. And I say it with great humility. I came from Woodford Square. God has blessed me. I got 4 lovely children. My eldest daughter is an evangelist in America with Andrew Womack. They was in Russia for 4 years. My second daughter is the head of the department at the ladies' hospital, head of anesthesia. My son became the youngest eye surgeon, cataract specialist in this country. You say boasting? No. I'm showing you where God could take a man from Woodford Square, right? Plant seed, heartbeat to win the lost, and God reward me.
Amen.
God bless
You know
me.
something from the heart? Every time I hear him give his testimony, the first time I heard him was my celebration up at Arima.
Yes,
I was shocked
preach for you there.
because I didn't know his background. I never knew he was a vagrant. And I was amazed. It's amazing. That's why we can't do without the evangelist.
I used to rhyme Calypso words for longer. He was a fisherman. That's the reason why I am known in this country for rhyming all my sermon titles. I make it attractive. You're preaching to the same crowd 7 days, 8 days. You have to have something to hold them. You know. So, you know.
Hallelujah.
Bless God.
I'm amazed.
It's an interesting, you know, in every era.
Yes, different.
In every era, we can trade stories about the hardship of each era.
Right.
It may not be fair to compare eras.
No.
Meaning that one can appreciate Reverend Rankisoon's passion and the challenges that he went through at the time because of the climate at the time.
Right.
I came along in the 80s. I mean, I could talk about what I deem to be hardship in the 80s, which may not be as hard as the 70s. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But for us who were born and bred in that time, it will be a difficult season for us. So, I mean, I think if you really loved the preaching and stuff, you would have had to go through some of these things. It's just a part of this. That is part of the cut and thrust of the whole thing, you know. And so, but I think ultimately, though, that we were driven and are driven by a burden for the lost. And even if we do not find an idealistic environment, that does not impede the message. You understand? We find a way because we have this passion and we have a burden.
Right.
I think, you know, in the segment before we were discussing social media and so on. One of the challenges of the evangelist is that we have to up our game and we have to become relevant and try and use every platform available to us to get the message out. You understand? And I mean, this is Outreach Ministries has been around for as long as we could think about it. Since you know, when you put on TTT on a Sunday, we see in Jeremiah Prescod, like, you know, he's a man that never gets old. You understand?
True.
You know, and we see now in 2018 that there is still use of technology. I see him on Facebook Live and these kinds of things. You understand? And instead of traveling to Poland and Russia and all these things, you can sit here in St. Augustine, in St. Joseph, and reach Poland. Right, yeah. So the issue really is being able to use the technology to get the message out.
I think that's a very good place for us to wrap up this session. You know, it's been short, but I'm glad that we've had this conversation and we're able to give our viewers a flavor as to what it was like back then, and also to bring out the common thing, the passion, and secondly, that there is still an absolute need
for evangelism.
to evangelize
Evangelism
by
can
whatever
still
means
work
necessary.
Today. It all depends upon
Agreed.
who organizing it and who is the preacher. Because people get excited when they have a brand
Right.
name, all the effort, but they have the local, they can imprint one handbill. They take him for lightly. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with us. We probably need to have some more discussions about evangelism, if only to get this new generation involved and excited about evangelism. So thank you again for being with us. I'm John Hart saying, see you next time on Outreach Ministries.
We will have our discussion.